Good afternoon, everyone. We're here today to talk about the progress being made by the Chicago Police Department's Vehicular Hijacking Task Force. We're also announcing 2 new tools meant to build upon this progress. These tools include a new carjacking specific webpage and an ongoing joint carjacking operation. The new website features all charge releases and booking photos of offenders, obviously with juvenile offenders being blurred, who have been charged with motor vehicle related charges. This year, 323 individuals have been arrested for such charges, which include vehicular hijacking, possession of a stolen motor vehicle, and criminal trespass to vehicle. The site that is accessible from the department's homepage also has prevention tips and printable flyers in 4 languages, including English, Spanish, Polish, and Chinese. There's also a section on what to do if you find yourself a victim of a carjacking. These tips include how to best describe an offender, as well as what information 911 operators need to know. Finally, Chicagoans can submit a tip on the site, and detectives can use the site to push out any relevant videos or surveillance photos. CBD is also working with the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the Illinois State Police, and the Cook County Sheriff's Police on several joint carjacking operations. Several of our partners are here today and were with us last weekend for the first such operation. And I want to highlight one particular case from Saturday night that began with an armed vehicular hijacking in the 300 block of East 95th Street on the south side. 2 15-year-olds and a 13-year-old carjacked an Uber driver before joyriding through the south and west sides at dangerous high speeds. They were finally apprehended hours later in Maryville, Indiana. In the end, these 3 teens were released to their parents with the possibility of additional charges being sought later. In total, 44% of the individuals Chicago police have arrested this year for motor vehicle-related charges have been juveniles. We all need to help our young people make better choices, and we need mentors to show them the way. And mentors come in many forms. They can be family members, teachers, coaches, pastors, or friends. They are invaluable. A system of support is the best deterrent, and for those that do offend, we need real consequences. The Uber driver will never forget what happened on Saturday night. That sort of trauma stays with a person. We need our young people to show empathy and to choose the right path when they are under pressure. I'd now like to call Chief of Detectives Brendan Denahan to the podium to provide additional details about our joint carjacking task force. Brendan?
Thanks, Superintendent. So, as the Superintendent mentioned, we have a new website that everybody can get to from our homepage, and it allows the citizens to submit tips and assist us with our carjacking task force. I know that we've talked about the carjacking task force in the past, and today we're here to talk about a mission that we ran, a carjacking operation on Friday and Saturday. Obviously, all of our Chicago officers and partners were involved, but it was a joint operation with Illinois State Police, who's here with us, the Cook County Sheriff's Police. We had our federal partners, and we also had our FBI Violent Crimes Task Force assisting with us on Saturday. And I'm just going to go over some basic numbers of what happened, but it was a remarkable effort, and I just want to thank all the troops on the ground, because they're the ones who kind of put this together. There was a lot of coordination, a lot of effort on the front end, a lot of planning with our hijacking lieutenant who got this completed, but it's always the troops on the ground that were out there, and in the air, I should say, the troops on the ground and in the air that were able to accomplish this mission. So just in this 2-day mission, we effected 10 felony arrests, 2 misdemeanor arrests. They recovered 2 handguns. One of them was equipped with an auto switch, which basically makes the handgun an automatic handgun. We recovered 10 stolen vehicles and recovered 3 hijacked vehicles for a total of 13 recoveries. And this couldn't be done without the cooperation effort from all of our partners. And like I said, you know, the boots on the ground, and then specifically the air support helps out greatly in these matters when you have these offenders flying around at high rates of speed. the eye in the sky can kind of keep an eye on them, get our officers to the right place, and they assisted in several different arrests over the weekend. So I truly want to thank the efforts of all the officers involved. And as the superintendent mentioned, later on we're going to have a victim come up and introduce himself. And I think we don't give a lot about his experience, his unfortunate experience.
We're expecting more results like this. And for the people partaking in this, they need to be aware that there's more people out there looking for them. And just as the chief mentioned and the soup mentioned, the apprehension rate was fantastic. So that will continue as well. And the point that I've tried to make too, for anybody who has some illusions that this is a Chicago problem, it is not a Chicago problem. It's going on all around the country, but as someone who has jurisdiction and in doing work all throughout suburban Cook County, we have a large uptick in suburban Cook County as well. And we've seen that steadily increasing over the years as well. So we and everyone else will be working on those cases as well, but this needs to be driven home that this is an epidemic that's going on everywhere, not unique here, but these are the resources that you need to get in front of it, and that's what everyone here is doing. We're going to continue to do that. And now, Colonel Byrd was going to come and talk from the state police.
Thank you, Sheriff Dart. Good afternoon. I'm Colonel David Byrd, Deputy Director, Illinois State Police Division of Patrol. Standing to my rear to the left of me is Major Jason Lococo. He is the Region Commander for the Chicago region for the Illinois State Police. I'd like to thank the Chicago Police Department, first of all, for inviting us here today to speak briefly about the citywide joint carjacking task force and the successful operation conducted this past weekend. This task force and partnerships like this help us to continue to combat crimes such as these throughout the city and throughout the state of Illinois. The Illinois State Police is proud to serve on this task force, and we will continue our efforts to ensure more successful operations like this one this past weekend for as long as it is necessary. I would also like to extend our gratitude to the Chicago Police Department and our other partners during this operation. The FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the Cook County Sheriff's Office, and we cannot forget our friends in the sky, the Chicago Police helicopter and air support from the Department of Homeland Security. The efforts from all our officers from their respective law enforcement agencies who assisted all have had pivotal roles in the safe and successful operation of this joint operation. On behalf of the Illinois State Police, I would like to thank all the courageous men and women in law enforcement for putting their lives at risk daily and to provide safety and protection for us all. Thank you, and I'll bring back Chief Danahan for the response.
Hi, guys. So I'm going to bring forward a victim of a carjacking that happened on 95th Street, and we're going to keep his name anonymous. Obviously, he's a victim, but we just really want to thank him for joining us today because, like I said, the soup mentioned, very traumatic incident, and truly appreciate him coming forward.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I became the Saturday night hijack on car victim on 95th and down right. I'm an Uber driver, so the ride was given to me by Uber. So when I go there, it happens to be there are 3 teenagers, so a female and 2 male. So immediately they got in. As I pull up, I drove like 3 seconds, and the lady told me that she forgot something, maybe her key. She has to see whether her key is there. So I marched on the brake, and she said, okay, she got it. Then I moved a little bit and said, oh, hold on. So by the time I marched on the brake the second time, I just felt something on my head. So by the time I looked this way, I saw that it was a gun. 2 of the riders at the door, they went down, came to the front. They were asking for my money. Where is your money? I said, I got no money. So and they said, okay, get out. So I got out of the car. Look, they took off. They drove the car. I ran to the other side of the street, but I thought they have left. So they drove around the block, come across me in the front and started asking for my password. I think my phone was locked. So the other guy put the gun on my head again and started asking me for the password. I opened the phone for them actually, and they left. So I'm just here to say a very big thank you to State Police and Chicago State Department Police, most especially Officer Michelle, Officer Tom, and all the officers in charge of the case that night. So they did a very great job. They really made me feel okay after I reported to them. So they calmed me down and they told me that everything will be all right. So within minutes, I saw a chopper. They said a chopper will be around. I saw a chopper. I saw all the cars. So within 30 minutes, they said they discovered the victim. I mean the car, where the car was, and they chased them all the way to Maryville in Indiana. So.
We're currently experiencing along with the families of our Chicago police officers. So I just want to highlight that, and then with that, we'll take questions. I'm gonna go left to right. I'll make sure I get everyone, okay? At least one round, if not two. Yes?
Superintendent Enrique Rodriguez of Univision Chicago. You mentioned people can actually give tips. Can they do that in Spanish?
Yes.
Number one. And then the second question will be, how can you assure the residents that this effort will be more effective? Because we receive calls and messages to social media of people who are terrorized by the carjackings going on in our city.
Right. His two questions: was it in Spanish? Was the website and the tips in Spanish? The answer is yes. Secondly, the gentleman said that we get a lot of calls about carjacking all over the city. I just want to highlight this number for the back of the room if you didn't hear me in my comments. So this is the 10th week of the year, and Chicago police officers have arrested 323 people. 40% of that number are young people, juveniles, for carjacking-related crimes. The three categories are obviously vehicle hijacking, possession of a stolen car, and criminal trespass to a car. That's the charges we put on the crews, the carjacking crews, or groups of people that carjack. So we charge everyone associated with that particular crime. Again, the 10th week of the year, 323 people arrested by Chicago police officers. So again, Chicago cops are doing their job. There must be consequences for this behavior, regardless of their age. There must be consequences. Next question.
I would ask that.
Yes.
Madeline Kenny with the Chicago Sun-Times. I was just wondering, what do you attribute the rise in vehicle hijackings to?
So the question was, what do I attribute the rise in vehicle hijackings to? It's a national phenomenon. I think there's various reasons criminal experts attribute to this. Number one, our young people are not experiencing any social norms, schools being out. The criminal justice system since last March has crawled to a slow crawl, given the courts have not been in session, so there's been no criminal trials. Again, the levers of justice end with the conviction. So if you're not having criminal trials, you're not having convictions, therefore you're not having the consequences related to the behavior. I think that's been a contributor to this, as well as obviously all of the things associated with being in a global pandemic, while in a social justice movement, has created multiple layers of challenges, not just not having schools in sessions or the courts not convening, but just this being in a pandemic has had an impact on the social norms that we would normally have in our society. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi, Evelyn from Channel 7. With that being said, you talk about there have to be consequences, but the laws are the laws. How are you dealing with, you've got 44% of these folks are juvenile. So what are you all doing? I've heard other folks from your department tell me that they're frustrated, that they can arrest them, they can send them to juvie, and they're out within a couple of hours.
So number one, police officers are not judge, juror, or jailer. That's number one. We don't serve all those roles. We have the one role is that we make arrests for people who commit crime. And again, I can't say it enough, 323 people have been arrested for carjacking related crimes in what is now 10 weeks in this year. So that's what we're doing. Number two, we're also serving multiple roles as police officers, so we understand that we need a collaborative effort, not only with our law enforcement partners here, with the sheriff, with the Illinois State Police, but also with our federal partners and with those persons who work with our young people. We've reached out to Chicago Public Schools to help us with identifying and intervening, creating mitigation, creating some type of mentoring for our young people to make better decisions. Opening the schools is going to be helpful. That's no small thing I mentioned. Opening the schools is going to be helpful. Returning our young people to kind of a normal day where teachers and principals get to mentor young people within their school day, rather than them having that whole day without some type of oversight and mentoring. As well as, I think at some point our courts are scheduled to open, and to have those jury trials and those convictions is going to be helpful in changing the behavior as well. I'll come back to you for a second round, but I'm trying to get at least one round for everybody, if you don't mind. Next question. Yes, sir.
Charlie Wojciechowski from Channel 5. 300 plus sounds very, very large. But are you getting an accurate number? With this, our investigative unit seems to think it may be slightly higher. Also, are these cars...
Slightly higher or slightly lower?
Slightly higher. About 50 higher than they're guessing. And are we talking about joyriding is the primary use here, or are these being used in other crimes, and these perpetrators being factored into other crimes like smashing grabs and that?
Right, I'm going to take your second question first, and I'm going to turn over your first question to Chief of Detective Brendan Deaconhand to answer whether or not we're capturing all car-related crimes associated with carjacking. The second question is about, can you make sure you repeat it and make sure I get it? Your second part of your question.
The second part of it, we talk about so many of these being joyriding situations.
Yep.
But are these vehicles being used to commit other crimes, and are they...
I think there's three pieces to car crimes that are prominent over its history. One being to sell the parts for profit. You steal a car, you sell the parts for profit. Catalytic converters were a thing back a few years back. You sell the catalytic converter because the copper prices being so high. Number two, to commit other crimes. I think that will be the second category. And we see less of that, but that's prominent. The number one reason we found is joyriding. It's a shame that you hold a gun to someone's head just to joyride, but that seems to be what our young people are doing that we're capturing, is to joyride. And I'm going to bring Chief of Detective Deaconhand up to answer your first question about, are we capturing all the car-related crimes associated with these crews, these groups that are stealing cars and carjacking people? Brendan?
So I think if I heard your question, it was, are these 323, are they related to all these car-related crimes?
Our investigative units are tracking the carjackings, and they seem to place the numbers slightly higher, maybe as many as 50 people higher. Are you capturing all of the people involved in these crimes, and then all the incidents being reported, are they being reported as carjackings, or do they get separated out into other categories?
Yeah, so you're really starting to kind of peel the onion there. So they're all carjacking related crimes, but to your point, there are, with the data and the classifications, Like, for example, we had an incident last night where a man was walking to his car, 3 guys showed up, they jumped out of their car, and he thought he was going to be the victim of a carjacking, and then eventually these defendants drove away. So some of these are going to be mentioned as, as robberies or attempt robberies, but we're trying to get them all in the same bucket for carjacking-related offenses. So when you really start digging into the data, it can, peel off a little bit, but we're doing our best to, we're obviously capturing all the true car-related offenses, and to the superintendent's point, the 323 arrests are specifically related to all car-related offenses, stolen cars, carjacked cars, et cetera.
Let's keep going. Next. Yes, ma'am.
Can we confirm if 40 more people were added to the task force? And separately, are we seeing if any of these carjackings are tied to expressway shootings?
So to your first question, yes, we added 40 more officers, but the collaboration means we have a lot more officers from Illinois State Police, we have the sheriff, we have our federal partners, we have air support, which Chicago PD, Homeland Security, and our federal partners. So it's a collaboration of a lot of people in the law enforcement community here working toward resolving this issue of carjacking. So yes, we added 40 more confirmed. You had another question?
Yes. Are we seeing any ties between carjackings and the spike here? And we're seeing also a spike in expressway shootings as well.
So we do have some sense that there is a portion of carjackings that's being used to commit other crimes. So not just joyriding, that those cars are being stolen to commit other crimes. So a person will steal a car to do a drive-by shooting, either on a freeway or in a neighborhood. So that's correct. Next question on this side.
I'm Sherrill, Blackbrook, Chicago. You said 323 arrests, but how many carjackings year to date are there?
What's the latest number, Brendan? 368 total carjacking offenses, 323 arrests.
But those
Yeah.
arrests are not specific to carjacking.
Yes, they are specific to carjackings. That's our point. Yes.
Hey, sir. You mentioned the 3 juveniles involved in this gentleman's case, and how they were joyriding at high speeds across the south and west sides. Now, is there any indication that criminal suspects, carjacking or otherwise, are emboldened at all by the fact that CPD really doesn't conduct high-speed pursuits?
No, I think the point of this issue being more prevalent is there's no consequences, because courts have been closed for what is now almost a year. So there's been no jury trials for almost a year. So just think about average criminal. Nothing happens when you commit a crime like this. You're released, and some court date is set for some arbitrary date that no one knows because of the global pandemic. I think that's probably the least reported impact on the criminal justice system, that I think needs to be more coverage of this issue of the courts not in session, that the cops are not the judge, juror, or jailer. So we can't convene a court and convict anyone. We can make the arrest. Therefore, criminals experiencing this, no consequence because courts are closed, are more emboldened, much more than the idea whether or not we can have a high-speed chase, because we're capturing people much smarter than high-speed chases. High-speed chases are obviously very dangerous for everyone in the community. So we captured these 3 kids using air support and a collaboration of resources without having to be involved in a high-speed chase. We're going to start back over. You had a follow-up question right here. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I was saying, you were talking about the judge, jury, all that kind of thing. But, I mean, what you're saying is that, what I'm hearing you saying is that if school were in session, we're in this pandemic, a lot of this wouldn't be happening. But we still have to deal with the laws of juvenile justice. So is there any way that you're trying to work with the state's attorney to charge these juveniles as adults? Is there any way to do that? Is there any way to work with the state's attorney to try to make sure that there are actual consequences and not a slap on the wrist? As I said, these people are arrested, they're out in a couple hours.
We are doing all of that. All of that you mentioned, we're working with the state's attorney's office. We're working with our juvenile justice system for all the things you mentioned to have more consequences. Yes, ma'am.
lane cars are urban times. People in the neighborhoods believe when they hear you vetted people, the task force, et cetera, that there's more boots on the ground in their communities. But is that how the task force operates? Are you on a proactive or reactive only? And what kind of decision points do you look at if you say, I have to take the course from here and direct them there? If you look at the statistics, percentages sound awesome about, there's been this tremendous increase, but if you look at the numbers, it's a much different story.
I would push back on this idea. It's a much different story. So 323 people being arrested in 10 weeks for carjacking-related crimes is significant. It's a significant outcome. No one's celebrating this at all. There's a lot of work to be done in this area. One carjacking is one too many, in our opinion. We're never going to rest until we bring everyone to justice that's been involved in this heinous crime of pointing guns at people and taking their cars. So this is not a celebration. We're just reporting out progress and this collaboration. But I will say this, though, to your point, as an example, we arrested, this example we gave from Saturday, we arrested this group because the helicopter was up and saw a car driving erratically. This car was driving erratically. The helicopter followed this car to a destination. Our task force was dispatched to that destination, and these 3 young people were brought to justice, arrested. So that's real. That's a significant strategy that's working, and we've seen progress. Last question. Anyone? Last question? Yes.
Since January 21st, I just want to be clear, 40 officers were added to the task force and created the website. Anything else?
Yeah, we arrested 323 people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Okay, Tom, is he doing off topic would you do an update on just what's going on with the?
We're going to stay on topic today with the carjacking task force. Thank you. Is anybody interested in talking to Colonel Byrd from the state police on the site? Just to kind of talk about the inherent dangers that the officers are going through too in tracking these people, because a trooper was